Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Um, so, today's talk is about how to avoid the burnout. We can have studio owning us or we us owning the studio, right? I want to say something very clearly. I'm not coming here as a consultant who studied burnout. I'm here someone who has lived it. So, having studios with different locations in different communities and with different staff personalities, right? and and yet the pressures feel the same everywhere. For a long time I thought burnout is just part of leadership, right? Something that you just push through, something successful people accept. Today it isn't about fixing our studio, it's about redesigning how you exist inside it without self-sacrifice. So I want to welcome you all. Studio owners are the hardest working people, and it's not easy for them to slow down. Even when you sit down, your minds are running schedules, texts, and problems. So, for the next few minutes, I'm going to ask you guys to do something radical. Be fully present. Nothing will break you if you're not checking your phone right now. Yeah. I know that because I had to learn that lesson myself the hard way. Let me tell you a little story. I was out on a vacation recently, taking a walk, and I stumped on a sidewalk and broke my right uh, elbow. The largest bone in the arm is called the humerus, and I was humored by my humerus breaking with a minor crack. So I'm now carrying a little sling, my arm around in a sling, but still continuing on the work. So now, the thing is, if I'm taking a walk, I was watching, responding to folks on the phone. Not the best thing to do, right? So keeping that away, I think, is definitely a good idea. So, so what I want you guys to do is slow down, reconnect, and look at your studio and see how it fits in your life. See, burnout does not show up one day and announce itself, right? It sneaks in. For me, it showed up as irritability, as constantly thinking once this season is over, I will rest. See, the idea is not like that. Life should not be like, uh, I'll rest eventually. The thing is, rest should be built in. And when you're running more than one studio, there's always another season. That's when I realized this wasn't a time problem, it was a design problem. And now you're likely getting my rhythm about patterns and design across whether it's revenue or other things. So, see, the reality of a studio ownership is when you own one studio, you feel indispensable. When you own three, you feel multiply. Different parents, different instructors, different emergencies, but they all come to you, you see. I remember sitting in one studio parking lot after closing, already mentally at the next location, carrying problems that weren't even happening yet. And that's just how the brain is. You know, if it's not designed well, it's going to think about everything that can possibly go wrong instead of what can possibly go right. I have to train my brain to be more in presence of gratitude. And when I do, life shows up and I can be in the moment versus not be in the moment. So thinking about problems is not about leadership, it's just overloading yourself unnecessarily. So, so I want you to ask some questions honestly as a business owner, that without fixing or judging, ask yourself, when I first asked myself these questions, I did not like the answers to these three questions, but they were true. How do I feel when I wake up on a teaching day? How do I feel when I wake up on a teaching day? When was the last time I felt excited instead of being responsible? Right? When was the last time I felt excited instead of being responsible? But if I'm juggling problems, obviously not excited. What part of my week feels the heaviest? Right? So, awareness is the first thing we can do. Now, when the burnout happens, it's not a personal failure, okay? Here's the lie many of us believe: if I were stronger, this wouldn't feel so heavy. That's false. When I added my second studio, I thought I just need better discipline. When I added the third, I realized discipline wasn't the issue, design was. So you can out discipline a broken system anytime. So, so what is the issue here? What's the invisible trap? So the trap feels responsible, noble, even. I'll step back once this recital is over. Once I hired the right person, once things stabilize. But if you were ever running a studio for years, you already know that stability is temporary. So if rest depends on stability, the rest never comes. And you know that. So, so this goes back to the identity. Owning three studios made me confront a scary question: who the hell am I when I'm not solving problems? And for a while, I did not know. My identity had merged with being needed. And when that happens, stepping back feels like disappearing. So we have to change that in our mindset. You may be the owner, but you should be able to step away. So, so now, how do we design? So survival mode, it can be reactive, it can be exhausting. Design mode is intentional. See, the breakthrough for me came when I stopped asking, how can I keep up, and started asking, how do I want my life to feel? And that question changes everything. How do I want my life to feel? And what you find is energy is the real source. Owning multiple studios has taught me something, that the energy will show up before I do. If I walk into one studio stressed, the staff feels it. If I walk into another studio calm, the room settles. So your energy is contagious. Protecting that is part of your job. And it's not being selfish, it's actually needed. Forgive me. That is actually needed so you can get your team to work with you. So when I mapped my weeks across the three studios, I realized almost entirely in the that I was operating in the uh, emotional and operational zone. I had no creative space. I had very little joy. No wonder I was tired. So the framework of the three energy zones helped me see where I needed to rebalance. Not perfectly, but intentional. So if you're in the operational zone, you're tackling scheduling, logistics, admin, systems. If you're in the emotional zone, you're managing expectations, you're managing conflicts and reassurance. And if you stay in those two, the burnout will happen very quickly because emotional labor dominates, creativity disappears. Now, when I focus on teaching, vision, energy, inspiration, and connection with students, well, that's a different story. So, and even for the Smart Studio Circle, I'm always in the creative zone. So, there's a little exercise that you guys can go through, right? This exercise is very simple but very powerful. You can take 2 minutes and work on this privately. Think about one weekly task that drains you, one task or activity that gives you energy, and one responsibility that you have outgrown but still carry. Once you get the answers to these questions, this will add to your clarity. And this list, if created every week, can become part of your roadmap for change because you'll have more clarity. Three questions work for me consistently. So I used to explain boundaries over and over and still felt ignored. So you can't define boundaries verbally. You have to design in a structure. And when I created this in the system, my stress dropped without confrontation. So the sustainable boundaries are policies, systems, and some default structures. For example, a clear communication window. An exception occurs defining a clear escalation path, uh, defining who will do what. And when you have a clear escalation path, then the responsibilities are also clear. And if it's visible who handles what, you're also then in a better shape because then you can hold that person accountable. If you are the one handling everything, not the case then, right? So, so when policy, system, and defaults, these will be different for different studios. But once you define these, a good system will protect your relationships, you see, especially with staff and colleagues and even your clients. So instead of asking, how do I fit everything in, I look at my calendar. So rather than create a reaction log of things to do, I have a design tool that asks the question, uh, if I have energy, which one of the problems deserves my most energy, best energy? So the energy reveals your priorities. The energy also reveals your intentions, right? So, so you don't need a perfect week. You just need a more intentional one on the problems that you're solving. And if you have staff members, you can delegate the responsibilities of some of the things you might handle yourself to them. So now, change doesn't happen overnight, and I did not design everything at once. I would protect an morning, an afternoon, delegated a decision, got away from drama, worked towards consistency, and I did not want a change that was rapid. I wanted it slow but steady. So now, when changes happen, something along the way, many of us delay the joy. I mean, you're in a business to have fun, right? So you say, well, I'll have joy once the studio is stable, once I've earned it. Joy will be a reward, it'll be the fuel. You know, you can't delay it. Joy actually is the number one requirement that fuels creativity, builds resilience, and signals alignment. When I reintroduced joy in my leadership, studios felt grounded, not depleted. We were able to create more. We were able to even go out and define and redefine success. Success costs you your health, relationships, peace. It should be joy. Owning three studios required me to redefine my success, not as growth, but sustainability. I want my studios to thrive even if I'm not there. So, true success will include sustainability, presence, and you can step away without fear, and a life that will begin to look bigger than smaller. So, the question that changed my leadership style was, before saying yes, before expanding, before committing, I ask, is my studio supporting my life or consuming it? It's a very simple question, but very powerful. So if you focus on yourself first and then your business systems, life will life will happen in a positive way. And again, always keep in mind, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And when you are the designer, you can control. You don't need permission on how to change how you lead. You don't need to justify your rest. And you don't need to wait until burnout forces your hand. You can redesign now, redesign gently, intentionally, and humanly. Right? So thank you for attending this conversation. Thank you for showing up. You carry a lot and you do it quietly. And if you walk away today, even with a small shift, this few minutes of the time you attended will be worth for you. Your studio needs you. Your studio needs you healthy. Your life needs you present. And again, I can tell you, sometimes when it pours, it rains. I got hit with a minor fracture in the humerus of the right elbow, of the right arm, I mean. And then while I'm recovering, which will take about 6 to 8 weeks, I get hit with a flu. It's like, man, I've got all this shit to do. How do I keep going? Well, I basically can focus on those two problems, or I can have gratitude for all what I have. And my biggest gratitude is the creation of the Smart Studio Circle and getting this message out to you guys. That wakes me up. I want you guys to be able to tackle these things. So I'm thankful that you joined the conversation with me. And I look forward to meeting you guys in some of the other sessions. Okay? So thanks, everybody. Wish you all the best.